Welcome back to Judge Judy Movie Analysis 2025. Have you ever had trouble with neighbors, been frustrated with a careless service, or worried about your children's safety? If so, then today's episode is a veritable feast for you. We will dive deep into not just one, not just two, but three classic cases, each representing one of the most common everyday fears. From a fiery battle between two dog owners, a plane accident worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, to a horrific collision on the street. These aren't just trials, they are lessons in deception, remorse, and the undeniable power of evidence. Fasten your seatbelts, because Judge Judy Movie Analysis 2025 is about to dissect every detail, starting now. We begin with a case that seems simple on the surface but quickly becomes a tangled mess of lies. Case 2139, Stevens vs. Stevens. Judge Judy immediately points out the coincidence in names, but she clarifies right away that they are not related, just neighbors. A small detail, but it signals a long-simmering neighborhood conflict. The plaintiff is suing for vet bills and pain and suffering after a dog attack. The first person called up is Emily Farringer, a witness, the plaintiff's daughter. Judge Judy begins the process of building a character profile, a technique she excels at. Emily is 22 years old, works at a bakery, and is a full-time student at Ohio State University. Immediately, we get the image of a credible, educated, and responsible witness. She isn't a troublemaker. The judge asks how long Emily has lived in her house. The answer is 8.5 years, showing they are longtime residents, not newcomers looking for a fight. Emily recounts the incident. She was walking the family dog, named Jax. Judge Judy asks how many dogs the family has. Emily replies just one. The judge wants details about the dog. It's a miniature schnauzer, weighing about 10 to 12 pounds, or maybe 15, 9 years old, and the family has had him since he was a puppy. Describing Jax is strategically crucial. A small, old dog, weighing only 15 pounds. This image immediately creates contrast and makes him the clear victim, the underdog. The plaintiff alleges that the defendant, Heather Stevens, had to unleash dogs that attacked Jax. But Emily immediately corrects this. She says no, only one dog attacked their dog. This adjustment, though small, adds to Emily's credibility. She isn't trying to exaggerate the story, she is presenting the facts exactly as she remembers them. Judge Judy turns to the defendant, Heather Stevens. She asks if she has a pit bull. Heather confirms, yes, Mom. It's white and brown, 5 years old. The judge asks if that's the only dog she has. Heather also confirms yes. Thus, the initial conflict about two dogs is resolved. The incident involves only one pit bull. Next is the time and place. The incident happened on July 26, 2021, around 8 p.m. Emily confirms it was still light out, not dark. This eliminates poor visibility as a factor. Emily was walking in the neighborhood, on the sidewalk. She recounts that she had passed the defendant's house and reached the end of the sidewalk. Jax was on a leash. Judge Judy emphasizes this detail, asking if she always walks the dog on a leash. Emily affirms they do. This is a key point, as it shows Emily was compliant with the law and acting responsibly. Emily begins to describe the attack in detail. She was about to cross the street. She brought a diagram. Judge Judy asks her to go to the diagram to show the location. This is when the trial becomes visual. Emily points to her location and says she noticed the other dog approach from her left side. Interestingly, she says the dog seemed to be in the street when it approached her. It didn't run out from the defendant's yard, but from the street. This is a surprisingly honest detail. A witness wanting to lie would have said it charged straight from the defendant's property. This honesty from Emily makes her testimony even stronger. The pit bull, brown and white, showed no prior aggression or barking. Emily recounts that it just ran up and latched onto her dog's leg. It all happened so fast. The pit bull lifted Jax up and started yanking the small dog around in the air. Emily describes the scene as very loud. Her dog was squealing and crying out very loudly. To protect herself and save her dog, Emily yanked the leash hard. She admits she did this so she wouldn't have to bend down and risk getting hurt herself. Judge Judy immediately focuses on this detail. She yanked him up by his leash. Emily confirms. The judge asks if Jax was wearing a regular collar or harness. Emily isn't sure, as they have both, but she believes he was wearing the collar that day. Judge Judy repeats, so she lifted him up by the collar. Emily confirms. This is a detail Judge Judy is considering, perhaps wondering if the yanking action contributed to the injury, but the focus clearly remains on the attacker. After pulling Jax up, Emily doesn't remember where the pit bull went. She thinks it ran back to the defendant's household, but she's not sure. Once again, this uncertainty, this honesty about what she doesn't remember, makes her testimony more believable. The only thing she knew for sure was that they took Jax to the animal hospital immediately. Now, Judge Judy wants to establish a pattern. She asks Emily if she had ever seen this pit bull before. Emily says yes, many times. She had seen it in multiple places around the neighborhood. Exactly that same dog. She'd seen it across the street in that neighbor's yard, and she'd even seen it in her own yard. It had also been next to her chain-link fence before. Emily estimates she had seen the dog roaming at least about 10 times. She had also told her mother, the plaintiff Audrey Stevens, about it. This proves this wasn't an isolated accident, but the result of systemic negligence on the defendant's part. And now, it's the defendant's, Heather Stevens' turn. Judge Judy calls her up to the diagram. She asks Heather if she was there at approximately 8 p.m. on July 26. Heather confirms she was. Judge Judy asks her to show her location. This is where the story begins to take a completely different turn. Heather claims she was busy moving a fridge into her home. Her dog, which we later learn is named Lily, was chained to the fence in the middle of the driveway. Heather's story is the complete opposite. She says Emily came from the crosswalk, and Emily's dog, Jax, went into Heather's driveway. Then, Heather's dog went up to Emily's dog, and they began to fight. Heather is trying to flip the blame, suggesting the little dog was the trespasser and aggressor. Judge Judy immediately spots the inconsistency. As Heather uses her finger to point to the location of the fight on the diagram, her finger keeps moving. Judge Judy says it outright. Hey, your finger keeps moving. One moment she's pointing a foot away, the next she's pointing somewhere else. This is a classic sign of dishonesty or uncertainty. Heather is trying to locate the fight on her property to bolster her "my dog was chained" story, but she can't be consistent. Judge Judy tells Heather straight to her face. She says she doesn't believe the story that Heather's dog has never been out and about unleashed. Heather still tries to deny it. And that's when the plaintiff drops the bombshell. They have pictures. They have proof of Heather's dog roaming. Judge Judy wants to see them. But before seeing the photos, Judge Judy returns to the diagram. She wants to clarify the location. Heather continues to fumble with her finger. Judge Judy has to point out, "Mom, your finger is moving up the driveway." Heather finally settles on a spot. Judge Judy reiterates she doesn't believe Heather, and she doesn't think Emily is lying about seeing Heather's dog roaming. Heather still flatly denies it, saying she never lets her dog off the leash. And then, the photos are produced. Judge Judy looks at them. They are undeniable proof. Heather's daughter tries to interject, saying those were taken after. But Judge Judy cuts her off. She doesn't care if it was before or after. Heather just made a blanket statement that she never lets her dog off leash. These photos prove she is a liar. Judge Judy shows the photos to Heather. Heather can't deny it. She admits she sees them, but then tries to excuse it by saying she was outside with the dog at that time. A weak excuse. Judge Judy smacks it down. She doesn't care if she was outside or not. She said her dog is never out without a leash. That is not true. Heather's credibility is completely shattered. As if that wasn't enough, Heather has a witness. A friend named Karen Brennan. Judge Judy warns Karen to be very careful. Karen confirms she's Heather's friend. She begins her story. On July 26, she was helping Heather with a fridge. She was getting the dolly to move it. She was coming from the side of the house, and she saw the little dog. Karen begins a character assassination of Jax. She says the little dog barks a lot. Every time she takes Heather's dog out, the little dog, if it's in the backyard, barks continuously. This is clearly an attempt to portray Jax as the troublemaker, to justify the pit bull's actions. Judge Judy cuts her off. Did she take the dog out that day? Karen says no. Judge Judy starts interrogating her about the timeline. When did Karen get to Heather's house? Mid-afternoon. What's Heather's dog's name? Lily. Was Lily chained to the fence all afternoon? Karen starts to fumble. Judge Judy presses her for a yes or no answer. Finally, Karen admits no. Where was the dog? In the backyard. Until what time? Around 7 p.m. Who moved the dog? Heather did. She took the dog from the backyard to the driveway, chaining it to the fence. This timeline seems to support Heather's story, but Judge Judy isn't done. Karen adds, "We went to get the refrigerator." Judge Judy stops her. "So you left the house?" Karen confirms. "What time did they leave?" "Mid-afternoon, around 4 or 5. Where was the dog then?" "In the vehicle with us." This is a completely new and contradictory detail. So the dog was in the backyard, and then it was in the car with them when they went to get the fridge. After they returned with the fridge, Heather then chained the dog to the fence in the driveway. Then, Karen went around back to get the dolly. Heather stayed in the driveway. As Karen was coming out, she saw Heather. Judge Judy asks Karen to go to the diagram and show exactly where Heather was. Karen points to the middle of the driveway, near where the dog was chained. And this is the killing blow. Judge Judy says she is going to read to Karen what her own friend, Heather Stevens, wrote and swore to in her answer. Heather wrote, "I was standing on the porch, maneuvering the fridge inside, and I saw a little dog sniffing around and walking up my driveway." The courtroom explodes. The witness's testimony completely contradicts the defendant's sworn statement. One says Heather was in the middle of the driveway. The other swore she was on the porch. These are two totally different places. Judge Judy asks Karen, "So who is telling the truth?" Karen still insists Heather was in the middle of the driveway. Judge Judy concludes, "So Heather lied when she said she was on the porch." Heather is completely crushed. She tries to offer a video showing her dog is nice and likes to play with little dogs. Judge Judy dismisses it. Clearly, it didn't like to play that day. Heather again tries to blame Jax for barking constantly. Judge Judy makes it clear she doesn't care if the schnauzer barks or not. One of them, Heather or Karen, lied about Heather's location. Combined with the photos of the unleashed dog, there's nothing left to argue. Heather tries one last desperate move, saying the criminal case was dismissed. Judge Judy explains that civil court is not criminal court. The criminal court may not want to jail her, but the civil court will make her responsible for the damage her dog caused. She also makes a comment about pit bulls, that they can be dangerous and cause serious injury, and that pit bull lovers may not want to hear it, but it's the truth. Heather remains stubborn, saying a dog's temperament is based on its upbringing. She raised Lily from a baby, and it's never been mean. She again blames the schnauzer for yapping. Judge Judy says that the other dog yapping is no reason for her, the owner of a potentially dangerous dog, to let it run loose without a leash. And she does that regularly. Emily, the witness, speaks up again. She says she had a brief interaction with Heather that day, and it seemed like Heather came from the street with the dog. She had offered to help Emily. And more importantly, they have video from the police officer's body cam. If the case wasn't already crystal clear, this is the final nail in Heather's coffin. They play the video. In the video, Heather herself is talking to the officer. She tells a third story. She says they were getting ready to go for a walk, moving a fridge, and her dog jumped out of the car when it saw the little dog. She says she will pay the bill. She apologizes and says she feels terrible. 3 completely different stories. 1. The dog was chained in the driveway. 2. She was on the porch. 3. The dog jumped out of the car. Heather, in the courtroom, still tries to argue that the incident happened in her driveway. She is arguing with her own image and voice on the video. Judge Judy points out that Heather and her witness told 2 totally different stories, and Heather should have prepared her witness better. Finally, Judge Judy reviews the bills. She explains that the law doesn't allow for pain and suffering for an animal. The total vet bill, including tax, is $441. She rules in favor of the plaintiff. After the trial, Heather continues to complain, saying her dog isn't vicious. But the most telling part is the post-trial commentary, which reveals the plaintiff had proof that Heather continued to let her dog roam unleashed after this attack happened. This shows Heather has no remorse and has learned nothing. She is simply an irresponsible owner. The second case is even more intense, with much more money at stake. Case 2145, Lee vs. Meyer. Mr. Lee, an amateur pilot, bought a used Cirrus SR-20 plane in April 2021 for $420,000 to train in. He still has a loan on it. The defendant, Ed Meyer, is a certified flight instructor who was training Mr. Lee. The allegation is that Meyer, while operating the plane alone without Mr. Lee present, was moving the plane and hit a cone, causing substantial damage to the propeller and engine. Mr. Lee's insurance covered some of it, but not all, and Mr. Lee wants Meyer to be responsible for the rest. Judge Judy asks Meyer if he remembers the date he was operating the plane alone. Meyer confirms it was in April 2022. Mr. Lee provides the exact date, April 22nd. The context is clarified. Mr. Lee and Meyer had flown somewhere, but the weather turned bad. Mr. Lee decided to fly home commercially on April 21st, leaving Meyer with the plane, tasking him with flying it back when the weather improved. This establishes that Meyer was entrusted with an asset worth nearly $500,000. Judge Judy asks Meyer a crucial hypothetical question. If he did, in fact, hit an object with the plane, would it be his responsibility? Meyer concedes, yes, because that would mean negligence was involved. This is a critical admission. Meyer isn't denying responsibility in principle, which means he's going to try to deny the facts. Mr. Lee confirms he was not present. He brought a witness, Mr. Williams, who manages Mr. Lee's plane, responsible for maintenance and upkeep. Williams was not present either, but he was the one who gathered the evidence. Williams was also the one who selected and introduced Meyer to Mr. Lee. Mr. Lee had only been working with Meyer for about a month. Judge Judy asks Williams how he learned about the accident. Williams says he received a phone call from Meyer. What did Meyer say? This is the key. Meyer said there was an instrument problem with the aircraft and he couldn't take off, so he returned the aircraft. This is a lie by omission. Meyer never said, "I hit a cone." He intentionally vaguely said instrument problem, making it sound like a random mechanical failure. Williams sent technicians to investigate. They sent Williams pictures of the damage, which was a damaged propeller. They also found the cone, which had a slice in it. And, just like the previous case, they have video. A surveillance video shows the plane taxiing and running right over the cone. Judge Judy shows the video to Meyer. Meyer's reaction is astonishing. He says, "It's interesting. I didn't even notice there was a cone." Judge Judy asks again, "You may not have noticed it, but you see it now, right?" Meyer admits, "Yes." Meyer's hitting the cone caused the damage. Meyer tries to downplay it, saying he's an airline pilot. He's never had this happen. It was an accident, not on purpose. Judge Judy doesn't care. She just needs to confirm that Meyer admits to hitting the cone. Now for the damages. Mr. Lee explains that the insurance covered the propeller and the engine teardown. Mr. Williams, the manager, clarifies. The FAA requires that any time a propeller strikes an object, the entire engine must be inspected for internal damage. The invoice paid by insurance was $63,000. I didn't notice bump worth $63,000. But that's not all. Mr. Lee has a list of items not covered by insurance. Judge Judy is immediately suspicious. She hands the list to Williams, the plane manager, and asks him to review it. She wants him to point out which items are unrelated to the engine accident. She says it outright. "It looks like there are things on here that bear no relation to an engine." Williams tries to explain they are items that need inspection, but Judge Judy has caught it. She points to an item. Brakes. How would the brakes be impacted by a prop strike at the nose of the plane? Williams immediately backpedals. He admits, "Yes, Your Honor, perhaps the brake linings are not part." Judge Judy tells him to take a pen and circle all the unrelated items. She says she may not know much about airplanes, but she knows what routine maintenance is. While Williams is reviewing, Meyer tries to interject, saying the cones are made of plastic. Judge Judy cuts him off. She doesn't care what it's made of. The plane worked fine before he hit it, and it was broken right after he hit it. You don't have to be a genius to figure it out. Williams comes back. He has circled 2 items, 7 and 8. Judge Judy points out item 9. Williams concedes that too. It was probably something they caught during the inspection, not part of the accident. However, Judge Judy points out that even after subtracting those padded items, the total reasonable amount of damages Mr. Lee is out of pocket for is still over $10,000, the court's jurisdictional limit. But the story isn't over. Judge Judy asks Williams why Mr. Lee's insurance didn't cover everything. Williams explains that typically, flight instructors like Meyer are supposed to have their own insurance. Judge Judy turns to Meyer. "Do you have your own insurance?" Meyer answers, "No." "Wait," Williams interjects again. "He did have insurance, but it had lapsed." Judge Judy says immediately, "Then he has no insurance." And then, she turns her attack on the plaintiff's own witness, Mr. Williams. She tells him he's lucky Mr. Lee isn't suing him. He's the management company. He recommended a flight instructor. It was his job to check if that person had insurance. Mr. Lee is in real estate. He hires Williams to handle this stuff. Williams failed in his duty. Williams tries to say Mr. Lee and Meyer worked out payment themselves, but Judge Judy doesn't accept it. Mr. Lee relied on Williams's recommendation. She warns Williams to tighten up his ship. Finally, she turns back to Meyer. He is responsible. Why did he let his insurance lapse? Meyer says he didn't even realize. An unacceptable excuse for a professional managing expensive property. Judge Judy rules for the plaintiff for $10,000. After the trial, Meyer still tries to say the cones are plastic. But Mr. Lee says the impact sounded like a gunshot and triggered several warnings. This completely refutes Meyer's lie that he didn't notice. He knew, and he lied. Mr. Lee concludes, no more student pilots or CFs will be flying his plane for a while. A very expensive lesson learned. The final case is a wake-up call for all parents. Case 2138, Cargill vs. Simonet. Ms. Cargill is suing Mr. Simonet because his 15-year-old son hit her car while riding a one-wheel electric skateboard. Judge Judy calls the son, Jacob Simonet, up. Jacob describes the skateboard. It has one big wheel in the middle. Judge Judy jokes she tried one for 30 seconds. It's electric. Top speed, 17 miles per hour. Judge Judy asks where he is supposed to ride it. Jacob answers, on the sidewalk. Does he ride it on the sidewalk? Jacob says yes. Judge Judy asks if he ever rides it in the street. Jacob answers, I do not. Another blatant lie about to be exposed. Ms. Cargill, the plaintiff, tells her story. It was August 17th. She was driving south. She had a green light and was crossing the intersection. She has a diagram. She says Jacob cut through on the red and slammed into the side of my car. She affirms he was in the street, where cars travel, not on the sidewalk. Jacob's turn. He also goes to the diagram. He says he was about right here, in the crosswalk. A weak attempt at justification. Judge Judy asks if the police report will indicate he was in the crosswalk. Jacob says he doesn't know. Judge Judy says the debris will tell the truth. She asks Jacob, where was the debris? Jacob admits, some of it was in the street. He points, about like right here. Judge Judy confirms, so, in the middle of the street, not the crosswalk. Jacob mutters, yeah, yes. He exposed his own lie. Judge Judy turns to the father, Joseph Simonet, and jokes. How do you know when a 15-year-old is lying? When their mouth is moving. The father laughs, admitting it. Jacob confirms he hit the side of Ms. Cargill's car, specifically the front fender. This means Ms. Cargill was already in the intersection, and Jacob hit her. She didn't hit him. Ms. Cargill describes the terrifying impact. He hit the side of the car, flew up onto the hood, rolled across it, hit her windshield, and fell to the ground. But what happened next was incredible. Ms. Cargill recounts that Jacob immediately got up, ran to her car window, apologized, and asked her if she was okay. Ms. Cargill said she was very impressed that he was more worried about her than himself. An M from across the street came over to check. Jacob was scraped up, but thankfully, not seriously injured. Judge Judy reviews the police report. The report confirms everything. A witness, who was stopped at the red light, saw Jacob pass his car while the light was still red. The police concluded Jacob was 100% at fault. Judge Judy asked Jacob to show on the diagram the cutting the corner maneuver mentioned in the report. Jacob shows how he went around the corner, cutting through the car lane instead of following the sidewalk or crosswalk. Judge Judy states clearly, she believes he was in the street. The father, Joseph, seems accepting. Judge Judy asks about the damages. Ms. Cargill has a 2015 Chevy Equinox, fully insured but with a $1,000 deductible. That's all she's asking for. Judge Judy asks Jacob if he still rides that thing. Jacob says it was destroyed. He's not getting a new one. And then Judge Judy tells a story. When she was 17, her father bought her her first car. It was the oldest, ugliest car, but it was like a tank. Her friends had cute little cars, but she had a tank. She asked her father why. He said, because if you get in an accident, I want you to be surrounded by 4,000 pounds of steel. It's a profound lesson. That one-wheeled skateboard had 0 pounds of steel to protect Jacob. She rules for the plaintiff for $1,000. However, in the post-trial interview, the father, Joseph Simonet, makes an astonishing statement. Despite his pleasant demeanor, he says that Ms. Cargill had some fault due to hitting a pedestrian in a crosswalk. Unbelievable. After all the evidence, the police report, the witness testimony, and his own son's admission that he was in the middle of the street, the father still tries to blame the victim. This shows he didn't truly understand the issue. He was just pleasant in court because he thought $1,000 was a cheap price to get out of trouble. Future predictions. After dissecting these 3 cases, I can't help but think about the future of those involved. For Heather Stevens, the defendant in the dog attack case, my prediction is bleak. The evidence that she continued to let her dog roam after the attack proves everything. Heather is the type of person who lives in denial. She will never believe her dog Lily has a problem. She will continue to blame other dogs for yapping or dismiss it as an accident. I firmly predict her dog will cause trouble again, and next time, the consequences could be much more severe. She will be back in court, with new lies, but her irresponsible nature will never change. Regarding the airplane accident, Admire has destroyed his career. The lie about the instrument problem was worse than the accident itself. In the aviation industry, where trust and honesty are paramount, he has failed. I predict he will find it extremely difficult to get work as an instructor again. As for Mr. Williams, the manager, I believe he learned an expensive lesson. Being publicly shamed by Judge Judy for not checking insurance was a shock. I predict his company will immediately change its procedures, requiring proof of active insurance monthly. And Mr. Lee, he will become extremely cautious. He will double-check everything himself, and it will be a long time before he trusts another flight instructor. Finally, the skateboard case. Jacob is a good kid who made a stupid mistake. The fall into the windshield and Judge Judy's lesson about 4,000 pounds of steel will probably haunt him for a while. I predict Jacob will be much more careful. But I worry about his father, Joseph. His post-trial statement shows he still implicitly blames the driver. He may still think his son was just a bit unlucky. I fear he might buy Jacob a new skateboard when the dust settles, and the tragedy could be repeated. Conclusion: 3 cases, 3 different levels of responsibility, but all sharing one common theme: the truth will eventually win, especially when there's video. From a neighbor's blatant lies, a professional pilot's deceit, to a father's incomplete acceptance of his son's fault, we watch Judge Judy peel back every layer of deception. These cases remind us that, whether you're a dog owner, a pilot, or a parent, responsibility is not an option. It's an obligation. And when we fail in that obligation, the consequences will find us, whether it's for $441 or $10,000. What are your thoughts on these 3 cases? Which one shocked you the most? Which lie was the most egregious? And do you agree with my predictions for their futures? Leave your comments below. Don't forget to follow Judge Judy Movie Analysis 2025 so you don't miss any of our deep dives. Thanks for watching.